I love the non-thinking state of meditation, the idea of no mind. And I contrast it with the fullness of mind that mindfulness teaches when you're meant to be present to, whether it's eating or walking or sitting or listening to someone else. But the no mind, the empty mind, and the full mind, neither of them are deliberate thinking. They're not thinking for constructive purposes. When it comes to deliberate thinking, I need a process, and that's what this pink sheet process does. It is a super effective, productive way to take what you know of in your mind and give it form in some way that is transferable and leverageable. Richard Dawkins coined the phrase meme to explain an idea that's fully formed and transferred from one mind to another. And we live in this age of ideas. If you think about it, the world's biggest retailer right now, Alibaba, has no inventory. The world's biggest accommodation business, Airbnb, holds no property. Let's not even get into Uber and YouTube. The world's biggest content platform doesn't generate any content. So we are firmly placed in the age of ideas. But an idea that is only in your head has very little currency. And what we want to do through this process is unpack your ideas. And that's what this pink sheet process does. If a chair, or say this stool, is real, it's real because of the three dimensions. It has height, it has width, it has depth. And all of these things make the stool that I'm sitting on a real thing. So for an idea to become tangible, for it to become a real thing, we need to look at its three dimensions. And the three dimensions of an idea are the matter that makes up the idea, there's the meaning, that's kind of the point you're making around the idea, and there's the meta that it sits in. Another way you could say that is every idea has content that gives it form, it has a concept that it's trying to articulate, and that it has a context within which it sits. Simply put, there's stuff you say that makes a point and is part of a big picture theme. I think it's also helpful to consider that you might have an analytical or scientific orientation around an idea and a creative or emotional orientation or an artistic orientation around an idea. And if you get these verticals and horizontals right, you're starting to get what's called a full spectrum idea. And this is part of the deliberate deep thinking, that you force yourself to go from the deep, deep south of the concrete detail through to the north of the abstract, the analytical east, and the artistic west. This process is what's behind the pink sheet. There are 5 locations on a pink sheet. So let's have a look at one now. This is a single piece of paper that you would use to capture an idea. And the thing that differentiates one idea from another is the middle of the figure 8, the point, the concept, or the meaning that you're putting on it. You could have exactly the same top and even the same bottom on an idea, but the bit that differentiates one idea from another discreetly is the intersection of the figure 8. That'll make sense when you look at a couple of examples. The left brain tool of context, the big analytical meta idea, is models. When you can think of your ideas in diagrammatic form, putting squares, triangles, and circles together in different ways, you get a lovely big picture representation of a particular area of thought. And it's equally powerful to be able to articulate that as a metaphor or in a right brain way. Now, when I say metaphor on the pink sheet process, I mean analogy and simile. It's just the alliteration of model and metaphor go nicely together. So the top third of the pink sheet is reserved to context, to your big meta stuff, and it's basically anchored by a model or a diagram on the left and a metaphor on the right. At the intersection of the figure 8 is the point you're making. And we always try to teach people to make your point in a number of different ways. Say it in a casual way, say it in a formal way, say it in a simple way so a 7-year-old could understand it. Maybe in an inspirational way so a 17-year-old could. Maybe you want to say it in a pragmatic, practical way like a 37-year-old would want to listen to it, or a wise, sagacious way so that a 70-year-old who's been around and heard a lot of ideas gets to receive it again as if for the first time. And each one of these, formal, casual, simple, inspirational, pragmatic, and sagacious are all different linguistic palettes, different ways of making the same point. Because repetitive variety is critically important when transferring an idea from your head to someone else's in whatever form with structural integrity. If we shift now to the bottom third of the pink sheet, you'll see that the analytical version of content is some sort of case study. There were 1,000 people on a 3-year journey who took this every 12 weeks and ended up with this result. So it's incredibly factual. I like to show pictures of real people and real places when I'm giving case studies. And stories, they have scene changes. I would act them out. I would have dramatic narrative. I would have funny voices. And I would use all sorts of things to bring the story to life if I were communicating with others. I believe that when great minds have access to this methodology, they can build robust, impactful memes. They can share their thinking with the planet, which transforms the reality for all of us. I truly believe that every problem we face on the planet, there is someone on the planet that has the kind of thinking that could solve that. If we can access that thinking, if we can get it out of their minds and accessible to all of us, amazing things can happen in this next decade and in this next generation, this age of ideas. We've decided at Thought Leaders to make this methodology freely accessible to the world. I've had the privilege of sitting next to great thinkers for 20 to 25 years, using this process to help them unpack what they know. We've decided to make this open source because when a great thinker's ideas are accessible, it's kind of like when you chuck a pebble in a pond. It creates ripples of cause and effect that can't help but make the world a better place. Not only do we want this technology to be available to you or anyone with access to the internet, but we'd encourage you to pay it forward. Why not teach this process in some way to someone you know? So we've licensed it with Creative Commons and made teaching aids like videos, slides, resources and handbooks available to help everybody on the planet use this methodology to capture what they know, package it in a way that others will value, and deliver it for impact on the planet. I can't wait to see your next great idea.